Well, hello. One concurrent viewer, thank you for coming so quickly. You know why I'm streaming on my secondary channel. I've got another strike, this time for an old video that was first streamed in February 2021. That's going back a bit. Unfortunately, I mentioned some elections. So I got done for that. But never mind. If you all remember that I have 3 channels and you can find me here, please go tell the others. As you know, I do more than say the same thing over and over again, because it seems that when I do say the same thing over and over again, that this kind of critical mass and so many ideas generated, some response to my ideas is generated, causing a synthesis in a Hegelian way, I suppose. So as you know, Hegel sort of said that ideas fight each other, and there's a kind of Darwinian struggle for survival of ideas, caused by people getting behind certain ideas that they like and then fighting each other over it. This has always been what has happened. Maybe we can't help it. We want to think that we are right and the others are wrong, and we are sure, and well, the thing is they are sure too that they are right. And these culture wars also take place beyond the battlefield, thank goodness. And I think we have a reasonable chance of resolving our disagreements without war, if enough people do what they're supposed to do and go about it through the proper channels. So in a way, it's very understandable that people who like one idea would gather together and dislike people who like its antithesis. So the thesis is the first idea that people gather round, and then the antithesis is people who don't like the idea, and they have a fight, and then one or the other wins, and it becomes a synthesis. And I am saying that Islam is a synthesis of Judaism and Christianity. So we have the thesis that is Judaism, the proposition that the Abrahamic God created the universe and sent a communication to Jews, and Christians thought they'd try and adopt that religion for Gentiles. And then Muslims thought, we're going to take the best bits out of both of these religions, and we are the synthesis. So I know Hegel didn't talk about the Abrahamic faiths in these terms, but he talked about, he created his own trinity, which actually would have been, or should have been, considered heresy if the authorities had been properly paying attention. But I guess they weren't paying attention, and he got away with it. Maybe even then, way back in the when did he write what he wrote? Hello? Hello? What was I saying? Let me finish my thought before before I answered my phone. What was my thought? I was talking about Hegel, and I was going to look up when he lived and died, when he wrote his important works, and well, it was in the 1800s anyway. And why did he write in such a ridiculous way? A ridiculously opaque way. Because he was afraid of coming to the attention of the authorities. You know, people. Well, people ought to wonder why Western philosophers wrote in that ridiculous way. Okay, so he was born in 1770 and died in 1831, and that was during the time when Europeans still took Christianity seriously. So he had to basically watch what he said, and I guess the only way of trying to say what he wanted to say was to write in an impenetrable way. But really, he didn't say that anything much. I mean, the difference between Western philosophers and Chinese philosophers is simply this, that Chinese philosophers wanted to be understood and were expected to make themselves understood because they were talking to the emperor. And that's why you'll find that, Confucius would write in aphorisms, in a way that you can always remember, and all the Confucius, he say, whatever he was meant to have said. Because he wanted to, well, very clearly and quickly tell the king what was wrong with his kingdom. And in fact, Confucius was a failure during his lifetime because he kept being sacked or he kept resigning, and but he did manage to keep up a following of disciples. And I think they were a mixed bunch because Confucius was known to complain that a lot of them really didn't get what he was saying, and it was very annoying. And I seem to remember he picked up a particular person who said, well, this person obviously doesn't get what I'm saying, and so I guess you will always get people like that, and you will never know if they really don't get what you're saying, what you've been trying to say to them for so many years, or are they just pretending to not understand? And should you care? Will you ever know? Is it weakness of intellect or weakness of character? And all the usual questions like why do they reject you? Why do they, why don't they support you? Why don't they become your disciples? Why won't they do what you? Why don't they do what you say? Why don't they do what you've been telling them to when they haven't got a better idea? And really, the problem is moral and psychological. They are in denial. I've been doing this for many years. Unfortunately, I don't mind. But I look at people who have been my friends, and some of them, they dip in from time to time, sometimes they're really interested, they wonder what I'm going to say about this and that. And other times they just drop out. You don't know what's happened to them. I guess they don't want to talk about it. They block you. You'll never know. And of course you can't really question them or challenge them because you don't want to fall out over something as trivial as a political disagreement. You can make excuses for them, perhaps say, you are being a bit of a bore, they don't want to get involved because they're afraid, either for themselves or their loved ones, or maybe they just don't think it's worth it at all. Because you could easily argue that, so you have a discussion, and after that, people hate you. What have you accomplished? You're not going to go the whole hog. You're not, going to, you're not going to pursue it, basically. This is what I think stops a lot of people, that, they might do what they do online, but they're not going to, talk about it to anybody they know in real life. Certainly not going to talk about it to their colleagues. Maybe they would risk talking about it to members of family who can't really cancel you. Who knows? Or they will just forever pretend not to understand you because they already know what you say, they understand exactly what you're saying, they can't think of anything better, and their only response is to pretend that they didn't understand. Because they already have understood the logic of the arguments and the moral imperative that they choose to ignore. So, or you can have a tick list. You can say, this person probably doesn't understand, or this person is probably afraid, and this person isn't really afraid because they've done some sort of, they've martyred themselves through some other act of martyrdom for their political cause. I mean, if you've already been in prison, once or twice or three times, you're already an old lag. So I suppose when such a person won't engage, yes, they can be afraid. They don't want to, cause, loss and embarrassment to the people who know them. Or they genuinely don't understand my reasons, or they don't want to admit I'm right. Or it could be all three. So I'm saying, if you're already known for your political activism, or you have somehow come to the attention of the authorities and been in prison for it, why not take that risk? Again, you're in for a penny, in for a pound, right? You've got nothing more to lose. It's like, marching into, trying to cross a swamp, but just getting into the middle of it and not going any further. So I don't know. Obviously I have no power to make people do anything that I want. I can only hope that they will respond to a moral imperative and their own sense of what? Of achievement. I mean, what's the point of, doing just enough to get yourself into trouble and never doing anything more? And I think a lot of people are like that, BNP members. And I guess they don't want to come my way because I'm not powerful enough. They think if they stay within their, small group of Islamophobes or anti-Semites, at least they kind of, have a group to be associated with, even though it's, one of those groups bumping along at the bottom, ridiculed for being, baskets of deplorables and all that. But I also know that if I were rich and famous and powerful, they come over in a flash. They're all basically, thinking, will it end well for me or not if I do this thing that Claire asks? And then they decide that I'm not likely to succeed, and therefore they ignore me. I mean, I can see, the rationale of thinking like that, but obviously they'd have to admit that they're not acting in a principled way. Because the whole thing about doing the right thing is you do it anyway. Obviously you hope for there to be a reward. But the point of following your principle is that you will do the thing even though you're going to get punished for it. That is the point of a principle. But I understand nobody gets it anymore. They're not told to do the right thing. They're not expected to do the right thing. They're supposed to think like a bunch of atheists and nihilists. And it is actually the fact that they do that nothing can be achieved. They have no political will to deal with their internal and external enemies. They literally haven't got the will. They can't think in those terms. And that's why, their enemies just run circles around them. And that's why I'm saying they need a moral system so that, that generates the principles that they're supposed to follow. That is what is required to keep your group in existence and apart from others. And fortunately, some people do understand. And today I had a very, when you get fan mail. And I got fan mail. Well, not in the old-fashioned sense, but when somebody, out of the blue pops up and says nice things, well, you don't forget about it. And says all the things that show they understand what you're trying to do. I like to think I'm the expert in the calculated risk. I mean, of course, it might not end well for me, you see. I admit that. I'm only mortal and fallible. But you wouldn't have me otherwise, would you? Because if I were immortal and infallible, you'd think, oh, well, it's all right for her to say these things, but we're not like her, and what's all right for her is not all right for us, so we can't follow her. So, yes, I can think of all the, excuses that you would, think are to not do what I tell you to do. So, I understand that it is the belief that I won't succeed. That means that explains my lack of followership. I also know that my secular Quranism is a very sticky idea. Even the people who hate it can't help but return to it, because it's an object of morbid fascination. I get people popping up all the time from years ago, like, oh, are you still going? Are you still saying the same thing? Yes. And recently I had a rather metaphor used about me, about how I would wear down marble that I am really something capable of wearing away stone. So, yes, it does require persistence, and obviously it wouldn't have happened if I'm just somebody who gives up easily. And on this matter, I refuse to give up easily because I think it's a good idea. Nobody can win an argument against me. And the people who reject my idea can't give me a sound reason. It's all, oh, we don't wanna, we don't like it, you can't make us, and that's it. I get, well, variations of the same answer, but I know when I'm getting it. I've never been given an answer that says, no, Christianity is not kaput, nor is liberalism. We're all very happy under our government. You're deluded if you think that we don't like it. So nobody's tried that one with me. Or another possible one would be, what you propose is illogical. And I don't see what's so illogical about it. If the problem is matriarchy, then the solution must be patriarchy. And if the destination is patriarchy, the vehicle must be theocracy. And, if you don't agree, of course you can say, no, we're not a matriarchy, and therefore patriarchy is not the solution. And even if it were, how are you going to get there? And my answer would be, I would get there through proposing a theocracy. And I guess the next question would be, well, nobody wants that. And my answer would be, they don't have to want it, it can just be imposed. Because that's how these things are done. They're imposed from above. So it's just a matter of getting the attention of the ruling classes. I imagine I've come to the attention of the security services. After all, they took away my computer, so I guess they must have some idea of what I do, the kind of thing I say, and maybe they're even now listening to what I have to say next. Of course, I will never propose violence. I'm not a general, I don't have an army. All I can do is ask questions in the hope that they will be answered by somebody who's in charge. And if I never get an answer, I suppose it's because there is no responsible adult in charge of the country I'm in, or even the country whose vassal state Britain is, along with the other NATO members. So why are they all stupid or corrupt or scared? Or mad? Or evil? I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters because I'm saying secular Quranism would cure their stupidity, their fear, their character defects. I was going to say something else. Christine Ramsey turns out to say, I have delusions of grandeur. Well, I don't mind admitting that my plans are ambitious, But I don't see why it couldn't happen in theory. Because we do live under a global empire, and my ambitions are also global. Of course, nobody has ever attempted this before. I just find myself, the one holding the baby, so to speak. I don't know what you're asking, Disco Burner. So Christine Ramsey says I'm bonkers. I don't think so, because I haven't said anything untrue, illogical, or immoral. So I've given you all these criteria with which you can use to undermine my arguments, and you can't. After all these years, you can't. You can't prove to me that Christo-liberalism is alive and well, or democracy, or all of the other ones that are in fact your sacred cows. So I started the stream by talking about Western philosophy and Hegel. I guess I'm a little tired now. I actually, in my mind, I had a list of things that I wanted to talk to you about. Yes, I did say I got all that fan mail, and that made me very happy. That there are people in the world who understand what I'm trying to do, and they even think it could work. And the beauty of it is that it's all legal and peaceful. Legal and peaceful. I am a genius. You just don't appreciate me. I shouldn't read my Facebook notifications. Well, I'm talking to you. You know what? I kind of want to talk to Vincent. I'm going to give him a ring. Maybe he'll come. I haven't spoken to him in years. No, days.
Hello?
Hi, Vincent.
Hi, are you streaming?
Yes. Do you want
Oh,
to
with
join
who?
me? No,
With who?
just all by my lonesome own. Do you want to join us? Have you time?
Oh, yeah, I can come. I can come. Just send the link.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Okay, I've sent him the link. Now I've got to sort my presentation, my display. And hope it displays properly. Hi, Vincent.
Hi, how are you?
I'm all
So,
right. It's been a while.
yes, I've been doing things. I was looking for a job and I did get called for one that I really want and hopefully they're setting up for my second interview. Hopefully I'll get a second interview. The only thing it's in a lab, which is nice because, I wanted to be a scientist and I didn't quite make it. So, I don't even know how I'm qualified to work in a lab, but um it's in a lab. And the only problem is that I'm a little bit upset is that because it's in the healthcare industry, I have to get all of my COVID updates. I'm vaccinated twice. I got the mandatory two-dose vaccination, but I never got any of the umpteen million, um, what's it called?
Boosters?
Update vaccination. Yeah, the boosters. I never got any of the boosters. And to be honest with you, I'm really worried about getting boosters. And I'm really worried about it because, there's all this talk about, there's all this talk about,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I
about,
mean, I'm double vaxxed, but I'm certainly not going to present myself for any more vaccinations.
yeah, I don't want to, yeah, I don't want to be,
But I mean, can't
unfortunately,
you get the job without doing it? You know, like you've been vaccinated. Why isn't that good enough?
they want all the vaccinations. Yeah, I'm a little bit scared about it.
But you think you'll do it anyway?
Yeah,
I,
because I really need a job.
oh. Well, perhaps it'll be all right. I mean, I guess even, the evidence is 50-50, and, it's not like, I guess what people are worried about is, well, if you're a woman of childbearing age, it might have, cause you fertility issues, but for men, maybe, I mean, you do hear of women suddenly having irregular bleeding.
Well, maybe, but there's all these
Yeah,
people collapsing with this sudden adult death syndrome that we have now.
I know. But I sort of thought like, maybe people are just looking for it, more than before, and reacting to it more. I don't know. Okay, my childhood memory was my parents, talking about the deaths of quite young people. So this
Of
is
it,
a childhood memory of mine.
of the death of what? Young people?
Yes, so and so dropped dead. Well, how terrible. Blah, blah, So was kind of, the well, dinner table, you know, mealtime conversation. But I don't know how, maybe I had a not very regular childhood, or I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know what to suggest, because when the evidence is 50-50, and you really want to need something, you're, I guess, it's very hard to decide.
Yes, it is. I mean, I'm gonna do it if I get this job, but I'm not gonna be happy about it, to be honest. And I'll be scared. I'll be worried.
Yeah. Well, you could ask somebody else. If only you had a rabbi to ask. But then
Actually, there was,
rabbinical opinion is also divided.
I know whether the vaccines are good or not. I know. There was a rabbi who said you can't get vaccines or whatever like that. I did read that.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're just doing it to drive us crazy. Maybe there's sort of, they just inject in us. The most evil thing you can think of is it's just a placebo. There's nothing in it. But you can make these stupid people think all kinds of things, and then argue with each other and maybe kill each other and never speak to members of their own family again over the stupid vaccine that isn't even a vaccine. In this fictitious, if only they were doing it for evil reasons, just to experiment, on us, using using
Well,
whatever
well,
psyops.
yeah. Well, they definitely divided everybody. I really didn't want to even get the first ones, but then it just became too difficult for me to live my life um, without have being vaccinated. You know what I mean? Like, they make it so it's too difficult to live your life. You can't get in places. This was back when you needed to show your card, your identity card to get into restaurants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't an easy time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
plus, everyone on Grindr was demanding you be vaccinated before you could fuck them. So of course I had to go get vaccinated.
Oh dear. Yes, yes, I suppose that I mean you would expect that.
Yeah, they were all demanding it, and they were very upfront about it. And if I said no, I wasn't going to get any, so I had to go get my vaccine.
Right, and did you have a kind of proof of being vaccinated thing?
Yeah,
Uh huh. What was it? What is it? A card with your
yeah, it was a
photo on
card.
it?
Yeah, a card. No, no photo on it, just a name.
Right. Well, it could be anybody's card though.
I know it
On
could be. Well, you'd
Grinder.
have to show them. I know, and then you could just fill in a card. You could get a fake card and fill it in. People were getting fake cards.
It's just so stupid. I. Do you feel like you're under a curse?
Um, I think our society is really messed up right now, and I think the way people are thinking is wrong, and it's making everyone really depressed, and just the way they're going about things is making people really unhappy. And I feel like we live in a cursed time. I mean, we have more material comforts than anyone else has ever had, but I think we're more mentally and emotionally full of angst than any other generation really ever has been
Yeah, I mean,
before. I mean,
when you think of, all the electronic toys we have to, it's almost unimaginable that we can just, I don't know, entertain ourselves just playing with our phones for hours and hours and hours and hours. Or I can anyway, because for me it's sort of is it work, is it political activism? Well, for me it is. So in a way I don't feel too guilty about it. It's like, oh my god, what have I done all day? I played my, or in front of the computer or something. Yeah, but I mean, that doesn't it point out? Doesn't it make it clearer that we're not happy just because we can get takeaways and have a roof over our heads and have toys to play with. We kind of need to feel safe and good. But we can't feel safe and good because we think our ruling classes are mad and evil and hate us.
yes, yeah, it's kind of hard, and nobody's doing the right thing. Even before, I mean, when Trump was in power, it was a little bit better, but even Trump might have been a little bit better for the country, but he's really not a very good person, to be honest with you. And um, he doesn't treat people well. He doesn't treat people who help him very well at all. And I think that extended to the American public as well. I mean, if you followed his career, everyone everyone who helped him get into the presidency, he dumped. He totally royally dismissed them and dumped them and got all brand new friends, all the establishment friends and schmoozing with Mitt Romney and making Orthodox Jewry the top of his administration when he dog whistled anti-Semitism to everybody. And he didn't build the wall. And you know, he did leave people like, pretty much hanging. And I don't like the way he might have been better for the country though, but I
But
don't
the
want him
thing was, he
back.
was the best thing you had, and that's it. You couldn't sort of choose a better president, and there's nobody better than him. I mean, that is the thing. It's like, well, I mean, when you're faced with a situation, then you think, well, the least bad person must be the choice. Because, it would be irrational to choose the worst person. So in a way, it makes it easy. It's like, yeah, we don't like you, and you treat people badly, but you're the best of a bad job.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have
I
to.
mean, it's a bit like my kind of Islam is no hide thing, and then you say, oh well, the Jews will just look down their noses on Islam and say it's not no hide enough. It's like it's okay as long as it's the most no hide religion, and it's like yeah,
Mhm.
it'll still work. I mean, at least my choice is rational.
Yeah, yeah, but unfortunately, yeah, there's nothing better. There's nothing better, but I don't want him in again. And well, I don't know. It depends. It depends. I might campaign for him and against him at the same time, in that he's the Noah Hyde candidate. So, I'd be like Noah Hyde's for Trump, but also I'd be like, if you're anti the Noah Hyde agenda, then don't vote for Trump.
But then, when people discover that you're in this double position, this double think position, they'll just say, well, he's obviously mad. We'll just dismiss his advice. It's sort of like, okay, you play a game of roulette and you put a chip on every single number. You're not going to win, or you won't win enough to make it worth your while. You're still going to lose everything.
Well, you know what? It's that I'm just, I'm trying my best. I know that people are going to kind of like see through it, but at least the idea will be out there, and hopefully other people will take up my ideas, like Noah Hides who are serious will start Noah Hides for Trump. You know what I mean? And that would be a really good thing to get attention, Noah Hides for Trump. You know what I mean? That would kind of leap out at people.
Well, if you join the movement to get Trump to use secular Quranism as a campaigning, well, as his manifesto, I mean, that would be so powerful. Because I mean, that would actually work. I've already got a um, three step legislative program, which is a to get the Supreme Court of the United States to
Hello?
um can't you hear me?
I got thrown out for a minute.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So okay, I've reduced a plan to a three-stage um thing, which means that making it easy for people to remember. So basically, the idea is for SCOTUS to go through the Quran, identifying, numbering, and listing, all the commandments of Allah, and then incorporating the farewell speech of George Washington, and then repealing all the laws that go against, one and two. And that's it. People can remember that even though they're not lawyers or whatever, and um, I think that kind of makes it more real. If you can express it in those terms, and what I've been trying to do is to get through to Dan Abrams, who runs News Nation. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yes.
And I saw him talking to Ann Coulter the other day, and then I realised, oh, he's a lawyer, and she's a lawyer too, and his papa, Floyd Abrams, is a constitutional lawyer. So it's like, well, if you can just get them to talk about it, I mean, it's like, okay, they don't even have to like it. I know they'll hate it because they're Islamophobes, and but I think actually it reminded me of Jen, because I remember Jen complaining about me and secular Quranism, and she was saying, oh, you can't unthink secular Quranism, can you? You can't unthink it. Yes, that's true. You can't unthink it.
No, you can't. No, you can't. And I just don't, I told you if I was an Abrahamic person, I might not really see a problem with it. And I might support it. Like if I were looking to create some kind of, like you said, um, transition phase into Islam, I would choose it. But, that's not what I want.
But the thing is, I think most people will still be able to have their fun because it's not going to happen, Even if it were adopted yesterday, it's not going, all the things that people fear, it's not going to happen immediately. The culture will change slowly. And, okay, I'm just not that worried about it.
Well,
Although I guess in my Islamophobic days, I might, be up in arms about the idea, but I guess I've had time to get used to it. And I don't see any other way of getting out of it. I mean, you either leave it alone and you just trust Biden and his successors to keep America crazy and the rest of the world crazy too because it follows America, or you make a U-turn.
mhm.
And you get your book of rules, because I think in a way the whole problem is because America hasn't got an official religion. And maybe, if you could talk to the founding fathers, like, do you wish, you had a, you wish you had established a religion, but obviously not Christianity because of all its problems of heretic burning. It could have been, maybe they just didn't get round to it because, we already know how Islamophobic most Americans are, and it was, probably worse in a time, after the Revolutionary War. So, maybe they didn't dare to even talk about Islam. I mean, you imagine, a sort of collective freak out by the early Americans. But now it's possible. Actually, now is a good time because, it's like you've had a consequence of not having a religion, which means that, you have to trust your legislature to basically make up the rules as they go along. And there have been 27 amendments now. So that is a problem, and I think the whole world can sort of understand that that is a problem. That global homo comes from America. Why does it come from America? Because, well, America is the most powerful and wealthiest country in the world. Everybody looks to it because of Hollywood and moon landings, and that because it has all the nuclear bombs. And I guess being American was a kind of religion in itself, until it all broke down. What was it? Truth, justice, and the American way. Is that
Yeah.
what? Yeah. So there was a time when it was synonymous. Well, truth and justice was synonymous with being American, and I guess that's gone away now. Presumably because Americans no longer trust their leaders or their courts. But
Right.
anyway, I
Well,
think,
nobody trusts any leaders anymore. There's really no leaders. Even the Muslims don't trust their leaders. Like Mujahid says, all the leaders are sold out to Zionism and stuff like that.
well, that's the thing, but it is a question of structure. Because, okay, I mean, I will give credit where it's due, and the Catholic Church at least had the idea of a supreme authority on Catholic doctrine on earth, and it's a Pope. So nobody can say, oh, I don't agree with the Pope, and my opinion is blah blah, because the Pope can excommunicate you. And so, as a patriarchal structure, the Catholic Church is a very good example of how patriarchy working properly ought to work. So everybody knew their place in the Catholic Church. It had a way of choosing its leaders, the papal conclave rules and all that. And maybe because of its ancient history, because the term pontifex was what the Roman Empire called its chief priest. So when Rome flipped over from their imperial cult to Christianity, the Pope was still the chief priest, which was what pontifex means. And they already have this sort of structure of putting on the hierarchical structure, the administrative structure of the church. It was already established before Rome became Christian, because all the machinery was already there. Is I guess what I'm trying to say. And it's all about putting on a show. I don't know if you watch funerals of popes. I mean, not the latest. Not Benedict, because it's like his coffin. It was such a cheap looking thing. But I mean, if he were, something weird has happened. Or something of that nature. I don't even begin to understand. But obviously there was something highly irregular going on. I mean, he couldn't go back to Germany. Maybe if he went back to Germany, he would be prosecuted for something or other. You know. So they must have come to some sort of weird plea bargain. I don't know, some sort of deal.
Odd. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but the thing about the Catholic Church with this top down, like, what if the system is bad, and then, or what if the ideas at the top are bad, and then, you have this one guy all the way at the top that's really hard to kind of question, and, then he could just toxify the whole system, whereas if it's a little bit more divided up, if the power is not so centralized, bad ideas can't really spread that far.
Well, okay. Okay, this is a problem as I see it, Vincent. If you have a hierarchical structure, you can identify the problem as soon as it appears. It's like, this thing that this order wasn't followed or wasn't passed on or something. And within the structure, you can find the weakest link. And then you go and punish the person. And, but in a structure, in a society that is supposed to be nominally, egalitarian, you don't really know, where the problem is coming from or who is responsible, because everybody will keep passing the buck, and this is a problem that was identified as long ago as Harry Truman's administration, because he put up that sign in the Oval Office, didn't he? The buck stops here, but actually it didn't. It just went round even faster.
Yeah, well, I mean,
And I think the
well, yes,
problem is a
well,
deep.
in our system, no, the president doesn't have all the power. You know what I mean? And that might be kind of a good thing because like we wouldn't want Biden having more power than he already has. I mean, we want it divided up. So, the point is to have, I mean, that's the point. Yeah, it's the point of our system in America is that nobody has too much power.
Well, it would make it difficult to run anything, because if you don't have power, then you can't get rid of things. And this is why I think the caliph, which is, I mean, okay, the Muslims are a bit shy of that, because I remember I was actually asking Anjem Chowdhury, it's like, well, is the caliph a dictator? And he said, oh, no, no, no. I said, well, he's a constitutional dictator. Oh, no, no, no. And I thought, you're lying. I mean, obviously, you want a dictator, because if you look at Roman history, they would elect a dictator, but he would be there only for a limited term to deal with some, national emergency when the Carthaginians were attacking them or something. So it was only for a limited term of 6 months. So we get this idea of emergency powers, etc. But um, okay, so the whole idea of the caliph is that he's not a king. He can't pass on his position to his son. So the best person would have to be chosen after he goes, and you can get rid of him if he governs in a way that is not in conformity with the constitution. And if you read your Quran, you will know when he is breaking Quranic principles of governance. So it's quite a nice, easy system to understand. And things should be put in this way so that people get it, or they know what it is in theory. But I mean, how are you going to explain this completely complicated system that is liberal democracy? And yes, we already know about the deep state, because there are all these civil servants and all these unknown people who have secure jobs, unlike the president or the prime minister, and we don't know their names. But actually, this idea of the deep state goes back. It's not something that popped up, in recent years. I mean, they had a deep state in the Roman Empire, and it was called the Praetorian Guard, which is basically and they would kill emperors that they didn't like. But and of course they were the army, and obviously for the empire, the army is the most powerful thing, and of course they would choose an emperor for the sake of reassuring the Roman people that an evil soldier was not in charge. But it has happened over history. And during the time of the 30 tyrants in Athens, because basically the Spartans won the war, and just got their kind of people, or people prepared to think like them to be in the whatever structure, I don't even know, was running Athens at the time. So they basically put their people there, and nobody really knew what was going on, and the system was opaque, and that's why I think a book of rules is so important. Because at least, even if they break the rules, you'll at least know that they've broken the rules in your own mind. But now we don't know. We don't really know what the rules are, so we can't say, oh, hey, you've broken the rules. I mean, the British are actually in the worst position because, for I don't know for how many centuries now, they've been told they have this wonderful unwritten constitution, and it's the biggest con job of all. I mean, I didn't know, I didn't realise until maybe in the last year, it's like, wow, they haven't got a constitution because
Who
it's
does it?
unwritten.
Who does it?
The British.
Oh.
So,
Well, Israel doesn't have a constitution either.
exactly. Any country that runs on the system of parliamentary supremacy doesn't have a constitution, because the doctrine of parliamentary supremacy allows the legislature to pass or repeal any law.
Hmm.
Yes, so basically, it's not as bad as having an absolute dictator saying, my word is the law, but this is, what we have now is a slow kill kind of absolute dictatorship, where Parliament pretends to care what we want, and then just imposes all kinds of weird stuff that we never asked for, at their leisure. And then they both parties just gang up and say we are agreed on environmentalism or gay marriage or whatever it is that they want to impose on us, and we are helpless because, well, we actually haven't got anything to say. Oh, excuse me, you're going against the rules. You're not supposed to be doing this. We don't have that, and actually, you Americans don't have it either, because every time you have an amendment, is basically your legislature saying, well, we want this new rule now, and we're going to pass an amendment. So you've got 27 amendments. So even with your constitution, you're not really protected from your incompetent and corrupt ruling classes who don't care about you. And I'm saying the Founding Fathers, in not saying, our constitution should be based on the Quran, has basically allowed it to happen. But I know this annual tradition of reading the farewell speech of George Washington. There are clues there that he is kind of referring to the Quran, and he talks about, what was it? We must, with caution, indulge the supposition that morality can be maintained without religion. But obviously it can't be Christianity, So if it's not Christianity, well, it can't be Judaism. It has to be Islam, and there's a White House Quran. I mean, there are clues if you want to look at it. If you want to recognize them as Jefferson speaking to Americans from the grave, the Jefferson Bible. Basically saying, what's all this rubbish from Paul and his letters. They say nothing. And then all the bits about what Jesus said, recorded in Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. It's not. It wasn't what Jesus said. I mean, they're not enough. They're not enough to be the basis of your laws. So I think that's a problem, and it can be easily solved. And I think once America solves its problems, everybody else will follow suit.
I'm not really counting on that. I'm not really counting on America solving its problems and that. Um, well, nobody's going to wrestle control of the American culture anytime soon. Like, liberalism is not going away anytime soon. And, the idea to the real problem is that, well, America used to be a conservative country because its culture was conservative. The culture has changed, and culture is a lot different to change than laws. You know
Well,
what I
the
mean?
culture. Okay, maybe there's. Okay, when did it start to change? Swinging 60s, I suppose.
Yeah,
And then there was a lot of. When did affirmative action come into being? I mean, it was in the 70s, wasn't
the
it?
70s, yeah.
Yeah, so what could easily have happened was okay, there was a Vietnam War, and it was a defeat for the Americans, and maybe after that the government was, oh well, we better not say anything too much in case they get angry with us, so they allowed a lot of things to distract, I guess, the youth of the time, and then
Well, I
having.
think the youth naturally rebelled. I think it was a natural cultural, I don't think it was a top-down, decision. I think that the culture itself became more liberal and it was bottom up, that the population made the government more liberal rather than the government making the people more liberal. Now it's the other way around in that the government has a liberal agenda. Well, at least under Biden it does.
Mm-hmm.
So now the government, tries to promote LGBTQ and all that other kind of stuff. But before it was liberals trying to get into the government and change the government. And, it was all these people on the bottom trying to get up and change it on the top. And they've changed it. They've changed it. And that's the thing that I say, that's the difference between the right wing and the left wing, is that the left wing is willing to sit around and work and work and work and work to slowly, slowly, slowly change the system, where the right wing, if they lose power, they don't know how to work slowly to regain control. They don't know how to do bit by bit. They don't know how to take a piece by piece by piece and slowly nick away, nick away, nick away, nick away at the system. The leftists know how to do that very well. And I admire them for that. They're
I.
very they're very good at what they do.
But because they are mainstream, so they get more status, and the people saying no, we shouldn't do that, because you know social conservatives are basically known as the party poopers.
Yeah.
They're always the old boring people saying no, no, we shouldn't do it, and then when you ask them why not, they can't really give you a good reason. You see, that is basically the problem with conservatism. But then, if you think about conservatism as an ideology that was formed, it was formed in response to the French Revolution, the ideas of the French Revolution, because I think I know it's not how it's presented, but the whole point of the French Revolution was it was a rejection of monarchy and Christianity. And you can imagine how frightened the other Christian kingdoms of Europe were, because they were all running under the same system. so conservatism was this sort of something that wasn't Jesus said this or that. It was something that was kind of let's dig our heels in, let's say no, and only whatever they said to make it sound sensible, to resist the radicalism of the ideas of the French Revolution. But it's not enough to hold it back, because when people say, well, why can't we, what's the harm of it, and maybe you can't predict it. Just because you can't see the harm doesn't mean there is no harm. And in fact, yesterday we were talking about people approving of incest and all that, and I know this is what you do, and I'm assuming that you say it because you don't see the harm of it, but obviously there was, it must. Well, we know that birth defects was the harm of it. The village idiot, the all that kind of thing, and it is dysgenic. So the rules against incest were established in most civilizations to prevent degeneracy. But obviously, in sexual matters, people don't know that you've had sex, and if you're a woman and you've just been knocked up, it won't become visible until at least 3 months afterwards. And then the baby is born, and you think, oh well, what's a problem, and then until you suddenly realise that the majority of people in your society are the children of unmarried parents, and you can't stop people thinking they have a right to have babies without birth certificate, marriage certificates, and then you have to change the whole culture, and you can only do it from above, really. And basically the highest authority that is higher in authority than the global empire that is America is the hypothetical supreme authority, whose book we already know has the rules that is capable of restoring the patriarchy. And as for whether God exists or not, that's not something I want to argue with anyone. People can believe it or not believe it, but even if you don't believe in God, there was obviously a purpose to patriarchy. Because if you live in your little country and you decide to go as liberal as the West has, you'd just be invaded in no time, and that would be the end of you. Because your neighbour will not be doing the same thing. They'll be, taking marriage seriously and punishing, unmarried parents, and, punishing, homosexuals, and shaming non-parents. I mean, they'd be doing all those things, and then, there'll be more, and then, they'll be capable of following orders and doing whatever's that's necessary to, invade your country and take your stuff.
Yeah, well, liberals need to change. You need to be militant and liberal at the same time, and you have to have a high birth rate. And, you need to mix the opposites. It seems that people just don't know how to get the full package. Like, they only take half of it. Like, they don't know how to have the full package. And if
Yeah, they pick
if
and
if
mix.
conservatives were militant but just a little bit more socially liberal, they wouldn't be having rebellions all the time against, there would have been no feminism or gay rights or anything like that. And if you just stayed scary and militant and liberal, then you really wouldn't need to worry about this kind of stuff.
Well, that's the thing, that belief in God just sort of salami sliced itself away over the centuries, with the French Revolution, and I think the American Republic really kind of was the catalyst for all that. Because, I can imagine all the Europeans saying, hey, we want that. We never agreed with this stupid religion that was imposed on us by our kings. We want to be a republic too. And that this sort of thing has been going on for quite a while now, and I don't think they've probably thought it through. But I mean, obviously, if you're being rational about the whole thing, you're going to get a bigger pool of political talent in a republic. I mean, China's a good example. It's like, well, I mean, even if you were emperor and you could have a harem, it's just not a good way of choosing the best, your successor. And eventually the system collapsed last century, and then communism took over. But now they have a republic, and at least with the Communist Party of China, if you're Chinese and you want to join, you want to become a politician, you have an interest in government, there's only one party you can join. So it would be attracting people, and not wasting their time like, oh, you're out of office, Labour or Tory, you can't do anything until you know we win an election. And it's all so stupid and time wasting. I mean, it's like China has this sort of ship that's not full of holes, that doesn't need all these people bailing water out of it, but the West does, because it just likes all the these elections, which if you ask individual people, they'll say, we don't believe in it. Not really, not even gonna vote. So it doesn't even make sense for them. It's like, well, either you believe in democracy or you don't, and then their response is they don't want to talk about it anymore. So I'm basically saying they're neurotic. That they're not making rational choices. They can't explain to you, even when you ask them repeatedly, what they think they're doing. They just want you to shut up and go away, which means they haven't thought it through. But yes, I know, it's like all, the whole herd of sacred cows is kind of, to be slain, and they don't want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just well, I think that well, still, if you look at America, our lives are better here in America than anywhere else really in the world. And so I think people feel as though, like, well, we still have it the best. I mean, it is still the best to live in Western Europe or in America where there's democracy and all that kind of stuff. It's just how much longer is it going to last? I mean,
It's getting
democracy.
worse every day. The crime is getting worse. The taxes are going up. Energy prices are going up, and the government is getting worse. So yes, you still have a roof over your head. You can still have fun shopping and having sex and drugs and rock and roll, but it's not going to last. And I guess if you have children, maybe you you would worry about what kind of future you're leaving them to. But since most people are not parents, they don't care. I think that is basically one of the reasons why most people should have parents and believe in God. Otherwise, they just wouldn't be able to do the right thing.
Well, I don't know. The Soviets didn't believe in God, and they had a rather conservative culture.
Well, yeah, because they didn't go gay, but then you have to wonder about why the Russians didn't stick with communism while the Chinese did. I mean, I know they had their problems, but they seem to have solved them. So I guess it's cultural, yeah, because the Russians and the Chinese were using the same thing. I mean, their party structure is lifted from the Soviet Union. The Politburo, Standing Committee, Politburo, etc., etc. So it's something to do with Christianity, because obviously, well, the Russians are Christian and the Chinese not, and well, they have a different kind of political history, and I think basically the Chinese have a more rational conception of political philosophy than Russians. I mean, yeah, but the Chinese are really corrupt. I mean, they have this terrible system of a whole list of punishments, and then a kind of brackets next to it saying, well, if you've been sentenced to death for the price of, whatever, you can buy yourself out of it, or buy yourself out of corporal punishment, or buy yourself out of exile, stuff like that. So it must have been really corrupt. And I can imagine rich people and poor people just hating the system.
Hmm.
But I think, fundamentally, you need you need most of the people to think it's fair enough. That's all that's needed. And then they won't rebel. But if more than half think it's stupid and crazy and evil, then you're in trouble.
Right. Yeah, you are in trouble, but I mean,
So all I'm proposing is a system that is fair enough. I don't pretend that everybody is going to love it, and actually, in a way, it's good that so many people hate it, because at least Americans say, oh well, we're not all getting our way. The poor people aren't getting it all their way. The rich people are not, and the men are not. The women are not. The old people are not, and the young people are not. So, it's that everybody finds something that they dislike about it, but at least, they sort of know that, the others don't like it all that much, but it's fair enough. I mean, it would be terrible if, well, one group really, really, really likes it.
right, keep talking. I'm just having my breakfast with pineapple.
Okay. So, in a way, it's quite sensible. I think. I mean, it's quite useful that so many people hate it. And, well, okay, I got some nice fan mail on on Twitter. Do you know I'm back on it?
They let you back on?
Well, no. Well, I had another account, and I kind of, that I used when I was out of the country, that I opened when I was out of the country. But anyway, right, and almost as soon as I started, doing things with it, I was timed out for 12 hours before I'd even tweeted a single thing. And then I thought, oh, they're going to kick me out. They're going to kick me out, and they let me stay.
Good. Good. I'm
Yeah,
glad. I don't know why they kicked you off. What did you say?
I don't even remember. I mean, officially the reason was for ban evasion. So it's like, well, I can't remember what I said last time. You know, I guess they just didn't like it. I know I was on the list of being, one of the worst people, who should be deplatformed immediately, blah blah.
But what exactly have you done that would get you deplatformed? I mean, I know your YouTube videos, like people coming on there and saying the N word or the F word or saying bad words would get you banned, but like what have you personally posted on Twitter that would ever get you banned?
I suppose it be hate speech. I can't remember what I said now. I honestly can't. But you can imagine the kind of subjects you know, um, I would discuss. And well, okay, I don't think of it. I haven't, in my opinion, said anything that I thought was hate speechy. But others might disagree. So I don't know. But I like using Twitter now that I'm back on it. I mean, obviously, if you have a message, you're going to do, you know, different platforms, allow different ways to express your views and your personality. Your tweets are a little, what's the word? I know you don't care about them.
Well, my tweets are, I mean, they're radical about radical subject matter.
I know, but they're hard to read. They're not, well presented. Like, you read immediately, you think, I know what he's on about. They're all just sort of links to your Facebook or something. People do get lazy. Sometimes they won't even click on a link unless they know what it's about.
Yeah, my Twitter is just linked to my Facebook account, so anything I post on Facebook goes to my Twitter.
Oh, so it still works in that way. I remember that it used to be linked, and then they sort of broke the link, and you couldn't do it anymore.
Oh, then maybe it doesn't work like that anymore. I haven't checked my Twitter in a long time.
But I think it is a powerful platform because uh, it in theory allows you to contact anyone on Twitter and be retweeted by celebrities like Trump or whoever. It's like a kind of word game.
Yeah, like that guy. He's kind of a big YouTuber. You know
Um,
that guy Six Hammer 666 or something like that.
oh
You know what I'm
yes,
talking about? He's a white guy with glasses and long hair and you know, kind of not nerd, a little nerdy.
yes.
And like yeah, Sticks Hammer 666. Trump I remember when Trump posted him and he was all excited about it.
Yeah. So if you're interested, it's just a suggestion. We could be working on Twitter and about how to communicate better and that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, I could get on Twitter. I'm lazy. Yeah, I gotta do that. Yeah, I gotta.
Yeah. I mean, it was actually somebody who said, "When are you going to come back on Twitter?" I said, "No, I'm busy. I'm writing a book." It's like you gotta come. You gotta come.
What are you writing a book about?
Secular Quranism. I finished it.
Is it for sale?
It will be once it's properly edited, which I'm not going to do myself. Obviously, I shouldn't edit it. So, we'll see in a few weeks what it is, and then you can buy
Well,
it. And apparently, Amazon take 60% of the price.
okay, well, I'll buy it. This is what I've been telling you to do to write a manifesto.
Yeah, I know, and finally I've done it, and thanks to everybody who's encouraged me to do it, because at least you can get a shortened version. It's not going to be a long book, um, and in fact I was told not to make it long, and I was relieved because I don't like long books, but even as I think about it, I kind of want to go back and add to it, and maybe I can still I can still do it. But you see, a lot of the when I was just feeling guilty, I am not doing it. I'm just talking to people, and talking to people actually gives me new ideas, and apprises me of the problems. That allows you to anticipate the problems ahead. But yeah, I think and so I was quite pleased with myself. Like well okay, I get so frustrated with people, like they don't ask me the obvious questions, even as people who oppose me. All they do is pretend not to understand and dispute the meaning of words, and the questions I love is, well, how are you going to do it? And so I managed to address that, I think,
Good.
through the American Constitution. And the hope is, Vincent, that you get all those Islamophobic lawyers, wanting to talk about it, if only to denounce it. Because
Okay, yeah.
people like, well, I mean, the lot of social conservatives, who are lawyers, and but the thing is, they don't like Islam, but they can't deny the need for a rule book if they're a lawyer. They'll see that immediately. Maybe ordinary people who are not trained in the law, they don't get it. But they should be able to, because the analogy is like you're forced to play a game, you're never told what the objective is, and you're never allowed to read the book, the rules. Good luck in winning it.
Hmm.
Yeah, because people don't really understand structures. They're not able to think in the abstract. And they don't understand the psychology of people. It's like when they see the problem and they think it's so big and it's so scary that they'll just pretend there is no problem and everything's okay after all, because they can't even imagine themselves, trying to sort it out. And they kind of retreat into all kinds of psychological stratagems, like pretending we just have to go back to Israel and wait for the Messiah to come, because that's what they can, they think they can achieve as individual Jews. Like, well, at least I can just move everything and move countries. And Christians think, well, we just have to convert everybody. We're going to convert the Muslims, we're going to convert the Jews in Israel, and then the Messiah will come. But the Muslims, I think they kind of think, well, eventually people will see the point of Islam, when they completely lose their heads over it and discover that the Messiah isn't coming. But these are sort of, in a way, understandable. It's like, I can't bear it anymore. The only good outcome can only be that the Messiah will come. Because it can't be that, I have to convert to Islam or, whatever.
Hmm.
But I think, okay, there's just some vague memory that's come back to me when I was reading a history book on China about, what the Chinese thought they were going to do when the last dynasty of China collapsed, the Qing dynasty. And it's almost as if, well, they couldn't, I guess they couldn't think of anything. It's like, what are we going to do now? This thing that has worked for us for thousands of years, it's gone now. We have to, well, what do we have? What can we do? And they chose Marxism, I suppose, because they hoped that if Marx is right, and they were the people to choose Marxism, they would get there before everybody else does. The workers' paradise and all that. I mean, I don't know. I'm just speculating, obviously. And I guess they rejected Islam because, well, they weren't impressed by the Muslims that they've seen. And also, Islam is one of the, well, Muslims are one of the subject peoples of Imperial China. And I suppose they were, wowed by anything that comes from the West, and it was Marx in England, and I guess they liked the narrative of reaching a worker's paradise in this world, in this lifetime.
Hold on. Hello?
Yes.
Just give me 1 second. I have to call someone. Just stay on the line. Just stay.
Okay. You've got 5 people now. Go on, 5 people. You gonna say something?
What's going on here? Hello?
So what have I got to say? Obviously, I'm going to retitle. What did I discuss? Discussing Hegel.
Hello?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, now I can. Um, what were we talking about?
We were talking about when you come to the end of the line for your particular political system and you have to change it, from monarchy to democracy to, whatever. I mean, people will find it hard because it's kind of like a sacred cow. And I was saying that in China, when the last imperial dynasty of China fell, it must have been, well, a terrible sense of dislocation. And I'm guessing that the Chinese thought, well, we have to find a new system, and then they chose Marxism because that was, a popular idea at the time. But then, Marxism would always be popular when people are feeling poor.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, China will probably just go capitalist eventually. I don't think that they're going to have power and not want to have all the luxuries and things like that. And
Yeah, but
they've already they've already loosened up on communism a lot anyway.
well, the thing is, people don't seem to realize that capitalism and communism are materialist ideologies. So it's all about, staff and, who gets staff, and obviously the capitalists think, people who own capital should control the staff, and from communists, they think people who own labour should get a fair deal. And they're always fighting, and then in the end they're not really happy. And I guess Islam comes along and says, you're going to get social justice, things will be fair, you know the wealthy people will be nice to the poor people will enjoy the charity and honesty of people who genuinely care about the people, etc. And I guess for the rich people, they would have to be sold on the idea that the rules will be fair enough, and you won't have great income inequalities, because usury will be abolished, because it is allowing usury to run wild that causes great income inequality and divisions in your society. And I suppose it could be said that Islam offers, a belief system that, will be comforting to many, and also encourage them to be, well, honest and kind in this life, in the hope of getting to the better place in the next. And even if most people don't believe in it, they will kind of feel they have to pay lip service to it.
Hmm.
And, well, isn't that useful?
Well, yes, but it just depends on what kind of system you're putting in place. I wouldn't be happy under Islam, but you know,
You'd be
look,
happy under
I wasn't
American
happy under
Islam.
Christianity without its laws, just its culture, was hard enough. I mean, I had to be raised in a household where I was, told I wasn't told directly to my face that I was evil because I was a homosexual, but in the whole Christian world, at least when I was young, or at least in my town, at least in my congregation, was very anti-homosexual. I had to go in and listen to lectures about why homosexuality is bad and all this other kind of stuff. I don't want to go through that again with Islam. I don't want the culture.
But it wouldn't happen, would it? I mean, you wouldn't be lectured. You'd already know. If you get caught, if you're convicted of a public decency offence, then you get punished. But if you don't, nobody's going to bother you.
I know, but still they make it they're anti-homosexual in culture.
But I think it's because it's so easy to become gay. In a way, if you think, I like sex, I like recreational sex. The cheaper sex is gay sex. The most expensive sex is married sex. Oh yeah, and women are really, or members of the opposite sex are so annoying. And then,
Which is why I can't believe, which is why half of these alt-right, dissident right women men are gay because they absolutely hate women so much. I don't see how you could even sleep with someone that you hate that much, that you think is that vile and disgusting. I mean, they actually think women are vile and disgusting, and I'm like, how do you fuck them? And not only do they think women are vile and disgusting, they worship men. Like, men are great, men are perfect. You're perfect as you are, king. No need to change. I mean, they're oh, from my castle to yours. Like, this their love of the man is like they're man worshippers and they're women haters, and I don't know how you sleep with women that way.
well, I mean, I know a gay man who basically was saying that it's just easier and cheaper to hook up with another, another man, and because then his sexual needs and his housing needs are satisfied, and he doesn't have to try and impress a woman, but obviously he's going to have some demographic effect on the country, on society. But yeah, I mean, basically, you can't you do have to push people into certain roles, and I mean, and if you want to be the minority, then I guess you'd have to stand your ground, and you'll have to be taken to all these classes who tell you that you're wrong for not wanting to get married, not wanting to have children, and don't you realize, whatever, whatever. But I mean, you do understand the rationale behind it, don't you? Because I mean, if you
Well,
just
I
let
think it's
everybody go
paranoia.
gay,
I think it's paranoia to think everyone's going to become gay. That's like paranoia that like everyone and their mother is just going to become a homosexual. I'm telling you, the reason we have a low birth rate is not because of gay people, it's because straight people stopped having kids. We
yeah,
had
but
nothing
but
to
it's
do with.
all part of the same thing. Like it doesn't matter who you have sex with as long as it's another consenting adult.
Well, it's not just that. It's that, look, we always talk about that. It's just now people have a choice as to how many kids they can have. This is heterosexuals' fault. They have a choice now. Okay, they can choose how many kids to have, and they choose not to have a lot of them.
Yeah, because children are expensive and inconvenient.
Exactly. So don't blame homosexuals for population decline.
No, no, but if they're not shamed, if they're not shamed, then people think, well, why don't I be gay? I've never liked the idea of having children.
Because not
Blah blah
everyone's going
blah.
to become gay. Not everyone is going to
Yeah,
become
but
gay. Only
enough of
certain.
them will, and then
Not
they'll
that
become the
many.
majority.
Not so many. Not so many that the birth rate is going to plummet. If the heterosexuals are still having kids,
Yeah,
then the birth
but they're
rate
not
will.
parenting them properly, and they're all kind of.
That has nothing to do with homosexuals.
But it's
That's a
part of the
bad.
culture of sex and drugs and rock and roll, of easy sex, of cheap sex. That is that is what causes the degeneracy. So although you're not completely responsible for it, you are part of the problem.
Well, you know,
I know you kind of try to compensate for it by, thinking of ideas of how gay people can, have children.
I don't know. I just don't think everyone is meant to have kids, and I think some people are meant to be gay, and I think it's good to have some gay people
Yeah,
around, and
yeah,
I think.
I'm not saying that they should be eradicated off the face of the earth. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, but you just want us to live in a culture where our being is kind of viewed as something not so hot.
Yeah, because I mean, surely you think okay, surely it is fair enough to privilege married parents over non-parents and non-parents over sex offenders. I'm sorry you fall into the category of sex offenders, but there'll be plenty of heterosexual people who would fall into it too. So don't feel, discriminated against on grounds of sexual orientation. And actually, you'd be less likely to get caught, since you're not going to get pregnant. But I suppose you might like to be the way you carry on. Would you like to be pregnant?
No, I don't want to be pregnant, but
Because I know you want to have a baby so much. I mean, you know that there are women who enjoy their pregnancy, don't you?
yes, but a lot of them don't, and a lot of them, it's very hard for them. And I think, obviously, a lot of them don't want to go through it an excessive number of times. That's why they limit their families.
Yeah, yeah.
They limit their families
Yeah,
because they
no,
just don't want to
yeah.
go through it. The only reason that all these Muslim women are having all these kids over and because they don't have access to birth control. They don't have a choice.
Of course they do. They can just ask for it from their doctor. It's okay. You're more likely to have more children if you, well, don't have to go out to work. Because then you think, oh well, my work is in the home, I can manage it. But obviously, you have to think of, maternity leave and all kinds of things if you are already in work and you don't want to piss off your employer too much by having all these kids. So you can only do two or three at the most without, people raising their eyebrows and, saying that you're taking more than your fair share. But the point is, I don't think employers should be paying maternity pay. It's just stupid. It's like, get your husband to pay for your shit.
Well, but these days, one husband can't even support one wife and one child. I mean,
Well, yeah, because,
an average, I couldn't support a wife and a child. Absolutely, I can't even support myself. Look, when I was working full time, would not be able to rent my own apartment for myself and pay for everything, my car, my apartment, all my haircuts, all my food, everything on a working man's salary. I need to be with my husband. I need to be with my husband. I couldn't afford all this.
well, yes, so obviously, you have certain forces driving you together. And obviously, a few things that's going to upset the feminists will have to be repealed, such as equal pay.
I know, but what I'm saying is that if you got women out of the workplace, no man would be able to afford a wife and a child or two.
Well, if you got women out of the workplace, men would be able to, well, command a higher salary without their employer getting into trouble about breaking the equal pay rules. Look, in the end, Western labour will be more competitive if it is done this way. You'll actually produce your own workforce that will be of your race or, from, you know, your own country instead of importing all these immigrants that you obviously, are scared of. Which is, upsetting the balance, the racial balance, the cultural balance, and all kinds of things. But this is what happens when you import a lot of men, a lot of single men who probably will have no hope of um, finding a wife of their own because it's actually different for men than it is for women. These immigrants because you know okay. So what I've noticed in Carol's my Carol's Telegram group is the people. Okay, one brown Muslim objects to secular Quranism because he just objects to the whole idea of him getting fewer women because white male converts in America will be preying like a predator on brown Muslim women, meaning that fewer. I mean, that he'll be even less likely to find a wife. So that's how he sees things. But obviously for a brown Muslim woman, she has the option of choosing men from her own religious and racial group, or she can marry out. You know, in a way, the world's her oyster, but maybe not so for the immigrant male. So the male and female experience of well, it's very different.
Yes. Yeah, it is very different,
Which
you
means that
know.
the whole premise of feminism is wrong. Gender is not a social construct. You know, people
It
will be.
partially is. No, it partially is. There's definitely differences between men and women that come out naturally, but a lot of gender roles are constructed and they have to be enforced because they're not natural, because women don't naturally want to do those kinds of things. Okay, women naturally want to go out of the house and go visit people and have a job and go to school and all these different kinds of things girls really want to do. So you have to force them out of it.
Yeah, but I mean, I actually know somebody from when I was doing law, and he was a lawyer, and his wife was a lawyer. He was a mature student, and he was saying, "Well, actually, I want to be a house husband. Why can't I be a house husband?" And he really wanted
Yeah.
to be a house husband. He'd say, "Well, you know, if it really is the case that we're allowed to, you know, if we are equal, I should be allowed to say I want to be a house husband without people freaking out on me."
Well, yes, you should be able to do that, I guess. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, but people do freak out. I mean, okay, imagine a woman, you know, meeting a man for the first time, and it's like, oh, what do you do? Well, you know, I'm just killing time, just hoping to find a woman who would like a house husband.
Well, yeah, it's going to be harder for him. It's harder to be a house husband, to find a wife that wants you to be a house husband than, the other way around.
Yes. So you know, in one fell swoop, we have dismantled the entire premise of feminism. It's like, yeah, some of us want to do, you know, some women want to do men's jobs and some, you know, men want to do women's jobs. But, well, you know, we have to cater for the majority because it's what makes our
Yes, the
society efficient.
majority has been pushed into a culture. They've been they've been pushed into a culture where they have to do that. If there were no pressure whatsoever, there would be more switchover.
What do you mean?
If there were no pressure, more men would do women's jobs and more women would do men's jobs.
Oh, yeah, yeah, we're back to that thing about, you know, these Jews who were supposed to pray to God that they were not, they were not born a woman. It's like I bet quite a lot of Jewish men over the centuries thinking, well, we think it's easier to be a woman. We don't want to do all the things that we're supposed to do as men. We think women have an easy ride, and we'd like to be a woman. And I've seen that. Because quite enough of them said that they kind of used this prayer to be a kind of reverse psychology to make them not think like that, or they'll all want to be women too, and then you know the whole Jewish tribe will just die out, as it appears. You know the Westerners are. You know it's like when men want to become women, then well the question to be asked when that happens is who will protect the women. It's like well no one except you know the foreign men coming in to take them away.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit different in the modern world where, I mean, they're not necessarily invading our country like, they used to, but there's something to what you're saying. I think it's good to have a subculture of very masculine men. So I think you need men who are militant. So make like a cult, like a cultural cult of these very militant men. And then the men who don't who aren't attracted to that cult, like let them be. But get your military, find all the macho men that want to be macho men and want to fuck the tranny boys, and you know, have your military and let the tranny boys sleep with them.
Well, I think most men want to sleep with real women, and they get very angry if they're tricked by a
Not tricked.
tranny.
I'm not saying trick them. I'm not saying trick them, but lots of men would sleep with trannies if there were no social uh, pillars up against it. So,
Really? I
yes, of
suppose
course
that
they
they
would.
might be curious, but
Oh,
would that be a
please, just
regular
go
thing?
into any gay chat room. There's millions of men looking for trannies.
Really?
Millions.
Oh,
Of course, it's very big. I mean, there a lot of them are secret. They have secret profiles looking for trannies and stuff like that. But
I had no idea. So what do you think would be the pleasure of a man looking for a tranny? I mean, is there
I don't
something?
know. I don't know why am I gay? Why are you straight? Why do people like all different kind of kinks? Why do some people like to eat shit? Like,
Ew.
why? Just why do some people you can't answer it. It's just something inside of you that you just like.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
just that's just what you want to do.
Hmm. I think people just want kinky sex because there's so much, vanilla sex that, people just want chilly sex, I suppose.
Yeah,
So,
they want to get creative. Vanilla sex is a little bit boring, and people are creative people and have intellectual needs, and sex is psychological as well. And so they have these psychological, needs, and it's just these psychological needs that they have. And if you want to have a tranny, then that's just one of your psychological needs. Maybe you just like a man dressed up in women's clothes because it seems that they're even more submissive and it's even more decadent than just fucking a random woman, and it's more kinky and more sleazy, and they need that dirtiness in their mind in order to have an orgasm, and you know what I mean.
mm, mm. But I think that is a problem of, yeah, cheapening sex because then it creates a demand and then it gets all kinds of weird stuff and then people can't cure themselves of their behavioral addictions and they just can't go back to vanilla sex with the same woman for the rest of their lives.
But yeah, nobody wants to do that. No, look, I mean, every man wants to stray, and every man, I mean, there's men that are bisexual and they have sex with other men behind their wives' backs, and there's men who sleep with other women behind their wives' backs, and or whatever. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them that are just not happy with monogamous marriage.
I suppose it's always been like that, always been like that, and but, obviously, if you're a wife and you picked up some horrible disease because your husband, caught gonorrhea or syphilis, well, then you wouldn't be very happy, and then you would, agree with rules that forbid that sort of behaviour.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's that. There's that. It's just, oh,
It is a
well,
problem, isn't it? But I'm saying that obviously for people who want to cheat, they'll find ways. But this kind of what's the word? There's a kind of hypermarket of sex, and it 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 makes it well, it cheapens it, and maybe even destroys society because people think they have a right to go into the hypermarket of sex, and in the end they have what are fundamentally unsatisfactory relationships, in an unstable economy, and they, with a government they hate that whom they suspect of actually wanting them dead. And I am saying secular Quranism would work for gay people. Yes, I'll admit that. Yes, they will have to. have a lower status because they can't be, considered in law equal to married parents. But I think it's a small price to pay if you want, all the things that made your parents proud to be American, etc., back again. But I mean,
Hmm.
right now, I get the impression. I think immigrants feel it more. It's like, well, Westerners they were just here and they had to put up with that bad government. But, for immigrants, it's like, oh, we made Hijra to Sodom and Gomorrah. How stupid were we to do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
How
and then
long have we
and
been
then their
talking?
children and
How
grandchildren
long
will
have
be,
how long have we been talking?
um, maybe half an hour, 40 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Have you got to?
Okay.
Do you have to go or something?
In a little bit.
Okay.
Um, but I want
It's
to give you
nearly
some
two
time.
hours for me, but I was kind of talking to myself before you arrived.
Okay. Um, well, just I don't know, Claire. I guess there's no answer except for secular Quranism. I guess, I guess there is no answer, Claire, except secular Quranism, and we should all just become secular Quranists. And I'm telling you, if I wanted a social conservative order and all this other kind of stuff, and I was a social conservative, I would definitely help you because it does seem to be rather sensible. But
Okay, what I think will happen, I mean, obviously, I live in the UK, I have no control over how, Americans are going to interpret it. I think the interpretation will be quite liberal. There is a possibility that, over time it'll get stricter and stricter because, people just tend towards extremes. And, but I don't think it'll affect you when it gets really strict because, you know, I think it will be after your lifetime, but you will get the credit for, being an honourable, sensible, homosexual, interested, and concerned about the American national interest and the future of this society, and you can show that people like you can, do appreciate, you know, the value of good parenting, even if you don't do it yourselves. I think anybody can, in the abstract, see the point of good parenting and, not bringing up a bunch of mixed up kids who will, be juvenile delinquents and criminals when they reach adulthood. And just this sort of nominal acknowledgement about of how things are run would I think redound to your credit and others like you and I mean, obviously, it's up to Americans to make sure that the rednecks and the people who want to be mean to gay people do not, get into a position to exploit, um, any power they have. But these things can be negotiated. That's what I'm trying to say. And obviously, when negotiated, it has to be fiercely protected. Principles have to be upheld, or everything will just change again. Like the wind. I mean, it's
yes.
constant maintenance anyway. Whatever system it is.
Hmm. Hmm. Claire, I do have to go. I'm
All right.
sorry.
Thank you for coming.
Sure. Okay.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye bye.